The warning came softly, almost lost beneath the midday noise of the street, but something about it made the air feel suddenly heavy, like the calm before a storm. The sun was high, traffic hummed, people passed by without slowing down, and yet within 2 seconds, a circle of confidence collapsed into a ring of silence that no one present would ever forget. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen strength, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Corner. Your small action helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Her name was Arya Soline, and to the world she looked ordinary in the most forgettable way. She walked with a slight limp from an old knee injury, carried a faded canvas bag on her shoulder, and wore plain clothes that blended into the daylight crowd. She worked mornings at a community library and afternoons helping at a youth center on the edge of the city, a place most people avoided once the sun began to drop, even though it was still bright when everything happened. Arya believed in daylight, believed that evil thrived in darkness and fear, and that walking upright under the sun was a quiet form of resistance. She had learned long ago that strength did not always announce itself loudly. The street she took that day was not the fastest way home, but it passed the youth center where she had spent years trying to keep teenagers from slipping into gangs that promised belonging and delivered destruction. The center had peeling paint and broken windows patched with plastic, but it also had laughter, art on the walls, and the smell of cheap coffee mixed with hope. Arya stayed longer than usual that afternoon, helping a boy named Riven finish a job application and cleaning up spilled paint from an art class. By the time she stepped outside, the sun sat strong overhead, casting sharp shadows that made everything look harsher than it was. She noticed them before they noticed her. A group of men leaning against parked motorcycles, blocking part of the sidewalk, their laughter too loud, their body language territorial. They wore matching jackets, dark colors absorbing heat, symbols stitched on the back that Arya recognized all too well. She had seen those symbols carved into desks, spray-painted on walls, tattooed onto young arms that shook when she tried to talk them out of bad decisions. This was the Iron Veil Crew, a gang that thrived on fear and spectacle, especially in broad daylight where they knew people would look away. Arya slowed her pace but did not turn back. Turning back would mean fear had already won. She adjusted the strap of her bag and kept walking, eyes forward, breath steady. She reminded herself of the lessons drilled into her body years ago, lessons learned in sweat-soaked gyms and silent training halls where discipline mattered more than anger. She had not trained in years, not seriously, but muscle memory was a stubborn thing. Strength, once earned, never truly left. The men noticed her when she was almost beside them. Their laughter shifted, attention snapping toward her like predators sensing movement. One stepped into her path, forcing her to stop. The street noise seemed to dull, as if the world leaned in to watch. Arya could feel eyes on her back, commuters pretending not to see, shopkeepers suddenly busy with nothing. It was always like this, she thought, the crowd disappearing when courage was needed most. They surrounded her casually at first, forming a loose circle, confident and careless. To them, she was an easy target, a woman alone, a reminder of how power could be displayed without consequence. Arya's heart beat faster, not with fear, but with a familiar focus. She assessed distances, body positions, the way weight shifted on feet. She smelled oil and sweat and sun-warmed asphalt. She felt the ground beneath her shoes, solid and reliable. Her warning came then, calm and unshaken, not raised in volume or sharpened with threat. It was a simple truth, offered like a final courtesy. She had warned them. The words were not bravado, not a challenge, but a statement born of experience and restraint. In the space of 2 seconds, everything changed. What followed did not look like violence to those who did not understand movement. It looked like silence swallowing sound. One moment there was laughter and swagger, the next there was stunned stillness. Arya moved with economy, every action precise, controlled, and purposeful. She did not lash out in anger or panic. She redirected force, unbalanced certainty, and let the men's own momentum betray them. The midday sun caught on sudden motion, shadows tangling as bodies froze mid-intent, realizing too late that they had misjudged her. No one screamed. No one cheered. The street seemed to hold its breath. The men found themselves halted, arms pinned, balance gone, eyes wide with confusion and dawning respect mixed with fear. Arya stood at the center, breathing steady, posture grounded, her presence commanding without aggression. She had not needed to strike, she had simply shown them a glimpse of a discipline they did not possess. For a long second, no one moved. Cars slowed. A shop door creaked open and closed. Somewhere, a phone hit the pavement, forgotten. The men backed away one by one, pride deflated, the illusion of dominance shattered in the harsh clarity of daylight. They did not apologize, but they did not advance again. They melted back toward their bikes, avoiding her eyes, the circle breaking apart as quietly as it had formed. Arya released her stance only after they were gone. Her knee ached, a reminder of why she had stepped away from that life, but she welcomed the pain as proof she was still alive, still capable. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the aftershock of restraint. She adjusted her bag again and continued down the street as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But something had happened, even if most people would never speak of it. A young woman who had been watching from across the road wiped tears from her eyes. An elderly man nodded once, a gesture heavy with gratitude. A boy from the youth center peeked out from behind a bus stop shelter, his gaze filled with awe. Arya felt those moments like quiet echoes, ripples spreading outward. Her past was not something she advertised. Years ago, before the limp and the library job, she had been a combat instructor in a disciplined, almost monastic system that valued control over destruction. She had walked away after losing a close friend to a senseless street fight, realizing that winning battles meant nothing if the war inside never ended. She chose service over spectacle, healing over hurting. That choice had not erased her skills, it had refined her purpose. When Arya reached her small apartment, sunlight streaming through dusty windows, she sat on the edge of her bed and finally let the weight of the day settle. She thought of the men, of the fear they wielded like currency, and of how easily it had evaporated. She thought of the kids at the center, especially Riven, and wondered if he had seen what happened. She hoped he had, not because violence was impressive, but because restraint was powerful. The next day, word spread quietly. Not as a legend, not exaggerated into something monstrous, but as a simple truth passed from mouth to mouth. The Iron Veil crew avoided that street. The youth center felt safer in the daylight. Attendance increased. A few of the older teens asked Arya about discipline, about training not to hurt but to protect. She did not boast or dramatize. She spoke about responsibility, about knowing when not to act, about strength as a promise rather than a threat. Arya continued her routine. She stocked books, brewed coffee, listened more than she spoke. Yet something in the community had shifted. People met her eyes more often. They stood a little taller. They believed, perhaps for the first time, that courage did not always come from numbers or noise. Sometimes it came from one person willing to stand still under the sun and refuse to be afraid. The men never returned, but the lesson remained. Fear thrives on assumption. Power collapses when challenged by calm. Arya did not save the city or dismantle a gang overnight. She did something smaller and far more enduring. She reminded people that kindness and strength were not opposites, that second chances began with seeing someone fully, not underestimating them. As the weeks passed, Arya noticed changes in herself too. The old guilt eased its grip. She slept better. She trained lightly in the mornings, stretching stiff joints, honoring her body rather than punishing it. She smiled more, a soft expression that held both sorrow and hope. She understood now that walking away from her past had not been surrender, it had been preparation for moments like this, moments where restraint spoke louder than fists. Just before the ending, a special request from the heart. Please comment below and share what strength means to you, or if you have ever been underestimated and surprised the world by staying true to yourself. On a bright afternoon much like the first, Arya stood outside the youth center watching kids paint a mural on the once blank wall. The sun illuminated colors bold and unapologetic. Laughter filled the air. The street felt lighter. Arya felt lighter too. She had warned them once, and that had been enough. The silence that followed was not empty, it was full of possibility. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that quiet courage still exists in a loud world, please like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps keep stories of kindness, resilience, and second chances alive, reaching others who need to believe that even in daylight, hope can stand unafraid.